Hi, I'm Nate Gilbert, attorney in Texas, and today I want to talk about forming LLCs, specifically forming a series LLC. So we've heard this term before. We've got a series LLC. If you want to invest in real estate, you should use a series LLC in Texas. And what a series LLC allows you to do is hold multiple properties in one LLC that is divided into several smaller subsidiary-like LLCs. So you form one series LLC with the Texas Secretary of State, and then you are able to divide your assets in that LLC into what are called series or little individual LLCs. And I'm going to go a little more in depth on that in other videos, but just as far as forming this first series LLC, there are some steps that we need to make sure that we're taking when we do that. There is statutorily required language that must be in your certificate of formation when you file that certificate of formation with the Secretary of State if you want the LLC to be recognized as a series LLC. So there's not a separate form necessarily with the Texas Secretary of State that you file to make your LLC a series LLC. It's language that you put in the certificate of formation for a regular LLC that makes it a series LLC. So that's something that I see a lot where people talk about, oh, I've had this series LLC that I filed, and I say, well, okay, let's look at the certificate of formation. And actually it's not. They might have the right operating agreement and the series designations that go with that, but according to the state, and any lawsuit that comes up later on, that's not going to be recognized as a series LLC and have the same protections afforded to each of the assets in those series that they have formed in their operating agreement. So we want to make sure, first of all, we're doing that. We make sure we get the statutorily required language in the certificate of formation before we file that with the Texas Secretary of State. Then in our operating agreement, we also have additional requirements. So in that operating agreement, it's going to be much the same language. It's going to have an authorization in it for series to be formed. This often comes up again when people have operating agreements they've used for other LLCs, or they work with out-of-state friends or other attorneys somewhere else that aren't really familiar with series LLCs. Series LLCs are a unique entity in Texas and like 3 or 4 other states that recognize them. So working with out-of-state folks or trying to use operating agreements from folks that don't necessarily know what series LLCs are can get you in a little trouble. And it can be fixed and we can make things work, but we want to make sure it's done the first time, excuse me, when we're dealing with series LLCs. Just going to save you a lot of headaches down the road. Additionally, when you're forming your series LLC, using that operating agreement, you want to make sure that the series designations are set out correctly. So forming those new little series LLCs and what are now in Texas called protected series or registered series if you're going that route. Protected series in the series LLC need to be named and formed correctly according to the operating agreement that you have. So if the operating agreement says to form the series this way, name it this way, and treat it this way, and attach it to the operating agreement, that's what you've got to do. Now, additionally, when you do that, there's some statutes in Texas that are going to limit this requirement, but I still advise my clients to do it. When you name that new series LLC, the new series of the series LLC, I always advise folks to register that name. Register it as a DBA or assumed name of your parent LLC that you're forming the series under. I think it lends credibility. It allows for banks to go online, look up that information. It's going to save you a little bit of headache later on if you can just register that name and name it in such a way that if you're wanting to preserve some anonymity, that you can do it that way. But I think it's not going to be totally required after June 2023 in Texas, but I still think it's a really good idea. Again, lends credibility, gives banks, lenders, investors somewhere to go and look up this particular information and make sure that it's actually accurate and represented at a state level. So that's kind of series LLCs from a bird's eye view. There are several different considerations that go into it that you should discuss with your attorney when you're forming this kind of an LLC. It's a great, great, great business entity structure. I advise clients to form series LLCs, even if they're only forming it for one property now. If we can get that series LLC formed now, and get it set up, and in 15 years you decide you want to buy the next property, it's so easy to just form that new series and put a new property in it. Maintenance wise, if you only have one property in one series, it's not really going to be that much different over the course of time, maintenance wise, cost wise, that kind of thing. So it's a really great idea to have that in your back pocket. If another opportunity comes up and you want to move into a series LLC in a different property, you've got it set up, it's ready to go. So again, great entity for people to decide if they want to do separate LLCs. Kind of depends on your risk profile, and we'll go over that as well. But just wanted to kind of put that out there, a bird's eye view of series LLC formation in Texas. Hope that helped a little bit.